Human employees are hired for roles. They have very high costs. They have a limited amount of hours they can work per week. And on the other hand, AI employees are not really hired for roles. They're best scoped to workflows. They can work 24/7 without any breaks. I'm going to be going over the exact frameworks that we use to build AI employees that actually build businesses. They don't need custom code to run. They can run and operate off of a plain English SOP. I'm really good at finding at least 20 hours of waste in operations, and I even have a guarantee that if I don't, I'll pay you $500. Hello, my name is Dylan Kender, and sorry I'm running a little bit late today. Had some trouble starting the live stream here. In this AI room, it's the first of many, and I'm going to be going over the exact frameworks that we use to build AI employees that actually build businesses. So a little bit about me. I'm founder and CEO at Datacos, and we build AI employees that handle repetitive tasks. So humans I focus. Hello, my name is Dylan Kender, and sorry I'm running a little. And if you stick around to the very end, I highly recommend it because I'll be handing out a free AI workflow audit for you. It's a step-by-step framework to identify and prioritize the highest value AI initiatives for you and your business. It'll tell you which workflow you should replace first, second, and then what the ROI actually looks like in dollars that you can expect from hiring these AI employees. So before diving into it, I want to take a moment to just explain the difference between human employees and AI employees because we actually have to approach them a bit differently. Now, human employees are hired for roles. They, have costs, very high costs, full salary benefits. They have a limited amount of hours they can work per week. They will also, forget things, and they can leave the company. They can take knowledge with them. They can do a lot of great things. I'm not here to only highlight the weaknesses of humans, but I think that just kind of helps show how AI employees have big advantages and strengths in certain categories. They also can make a lot of mistakes when doing the same repetitive task over and over and over and over again, which is something you'll see AI employees thrive on. And they're really best for building relationships, for having judgment, taste, and then determining the final strategic decision that should be made. And on the other hand, AI employees are not really hired for roles, at least not yet. They're best scoped to workflows. They're very cheap to run. They can also be expensive. It does depend on what they do, but when compared side by side to a human, much, much cheaper. They can work 24/7 without any breaks, and they can log every step. And very importantly, they can improve their process and they can learn, even run by run, but day by day, week by week. They can complete these learning loops much faster than humans can do to improve themselves and to optimize processes. And it doesn't get bored, doesn't make typing mistakes or typos or as many errors. And then it's best for repetitive role-based work. And it also, as I mentioned, has very fast learning and optimization cycles. And you can actually even start to see this today with the releases of new AI models. For example, I believe Opus 4.7 came out, and only 6 weeks later, 4.8 came out. And the reason that that's possible is because we know that Anthropic and other LLM providers are using their own models to develop the next iterations of themselves. So you can even see it on the ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude level that agents are creating faster loops. And now it's 6 weeks. Eventually, I'm sure it'll be monthly and then weekly. And, in the future, who knows, it could be perhaps even faster than that. Now, a role is really just a bundle of workflows when you look at it. And, humans are able to handle a lot of things, a lot of ambiguity all at once. Whereas the AI employees, they really do need a clear direction. And that's how we've kind of defined a workflow. So it's a repeatable set of steps with triggers, inputs, and outputs. And when hiring AI employees, you should really be thinking about it on a workflow level. So the audit that I'm going to share at the end is going to help you break down all of your roles into workflows so you can identify the ones that have the highest ROI opportunity for you to hand off to an AI employee. And you don't have to immediately replace the whole role. You can just start with one workflow. And so what that means in practice is you're not really building a marketer. You're building an AI employee that writes LinkedIn content specifically or writes blog posts. One workflow, one AI employee. That's kind of the right way to think about it at the moment. And you can see this here. Instead of hiring that marketing specialist to handle many different processes, for example, the weekly content writing, the content strategy, the performance analysis, you would hire one AI employee to handle each of these workflows. And then, of course, they can create documents and communicate with each other, but they're responsible for one workflow. So what do you need to do before you hire an AI employee? It's not too different from what you should do before hiring a human employee. You should have some process in place that you can teach them, that they can do repeatedly, and that's inside of an SOP, a standard operating procedure. This is really the first step towards hiring AI employees, getting the process defined and written out step by step, just like you would for a human, so that you can hand that to the AI employee to do the workflow over and over and over again. So one big change with AI employees versus traditional automation is that they don't need custom code to run. They can run and operate off of a plain English SOP. Something very important to put inside of these SOPs is a defined goal or KPI. And in the beginning, often the first phase is making KPIs that basically help the AI employee get to a level that's on par with a human employee. And what that typically means is 80% of the work that it does is being auto approved by a human. There's no feedback happening. That's typically the first KPI that we define. Other things might be the number of revision rounds needed from the human, how many inputs and changes. We're trying to drive that down over time. That's kind of phase one. Once the AI employee is doing it as well as the person, as a human, then we typically have phase two KPIs that are much more outward looking. And it's not interacting with a human in the loop anymore to get feedback. It's actually looking at the real world and getting real feedback from the real world. For example, if it's writing posts, it can look at how the posts are performing and then optimize its own process, not based on the human feedback, but on the real world feedback of how the posts are performing. And it can do more of what's working and less of what isn't working. And so these KPIs, we don't want a ton of them because it starts to make it hard for the AI to know which way to prioritize. So we want to be very clear and have maybe 1 to 3 typically is a sweet spot, but they can change over time as well. And then they need to have memory. They need to be able to remember the feedback that the humans gave it, feedback the external world is giving it, the thoughts that it had while it was working through a specific run, any errors or issues it bumped into along the way. That's very important so it can reflect in the future and improve itself in the process that's following. And then in the beginning, we often have human in the loops supervision. This gives it really critical feedback in the beginning to get it to a good baseline. But it also, especially if it's client facing or it's going to, be sending messages on behalf of your company or even creating marketing assets on behalf of your company, then at this point, I still really strongly recommend having a human in the loop to build up trust in it. And eventually it will get so good that the human's just accepting everything. And then we can have a discussion about whether it makes sense to remove the human in the loop from that workflow or not. And a really common question is, how is an AI employee different than just using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini in my browser? So most of our AI employees are powered by Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini. That's the intelligence provider. That's what gives it the ability to think and reason. But it's not inside the browser. We're using the APIs of these providers. And what's the difference is that the AI employee is responsible for a specific workflow and it has very defined KPIs. And as I said, it can remember the past and it runs self-learning loops to do better over time. And it's not just doing better on its own in isolation, it's actually making your SOP better in real time and defining what works best for you and your processes. So again, it's not just improving itself, it's actually improving that business process that it's responsible for over time, which is really exciting. So an example of just incredibly high level SOP, we probably build this for most all of our clients now. It's a very popular one, a little data entry AI employee for the CRM notes. And just for example here, it can monitor the sales and client calls. It can capture all the raw conversation data. It extracts the high value information that you want out of that conversation. It can surface obviously what matters and even create tasks and actions inside of your CRM for next steps and push all of that inside of a note or tasks or whatever you want, due dates, straight into the CRM for you automatically. This is a great example. And an AI will actually follow all these steps. In practice, the SOPs are more granular than this, but this gives you kind of an idea of step by step what it would follow. And so obviously here, it doesn't take any human in the loop for this interaction often, no manual data entry, and the data stays accurate. No one forgets or misses it or, does a poor job. And it actually helps you with downstream AI employees win more deals by having accurate information and personalization. So future AI employees, maybe they're making proposals or maybe they're sending a Christmas card. They can reference back all these conversations and really personalize it to your customer for you. All right, so now I'm actually going to break down how they learn and improve over time, like step by step here. So as I mentioned, we need instructions and we need goals defined inside of the SOP for the agent. And that can be written all in English, there's no code needed. Then it does the work, every task, and every time it runs, it remembers. And if you give it feedback, it remembers. If you make manual edits over top of its work, it also remembers. And any errors it runs into or mistakes that it finds along the way, it will also remember that. If there's a human check, a human can provide feedback. Of course, it will remember that. Any, edits or feedback like comments or approvals or rejections of the work, that's all stored. And then what we have is we have another AI employee, a very special one inside our company called the AI manager. They'll actually have a one-on-one meeting with each AI employee, and together they will review all the work it did, all the feedback it got, all the issues it ran into, the approvals, the rejections, the comments, context, the errors, anything that happened in the last most recent runs. And then they will strategize together how to optimize the process to more reliably hit the KPIs and the goals defined inside the SOP. And that produces a list that's given to, again, leadership team humans that suggests changes to update the SOP in order to hit those KPIs that are defined more reliably. And then a human just has to, approve whatever they like out of that list or reject whatever they don't like. Sometimes it may take one piece of feedback and take it a little bit too seriously and try to maybe like overcorrect the SOP for it. So the human in the loop is nice just to make sure that every change to the process, maybe is aligned with the bigger company goals, is aligned with, culture, brand, and it's not like over training on some little piece of feedback. But generally, it's really looking for patterns again and again and again that it can extrapolate into changes that improve the KPIs. There's one other thing too to mention is that the AI starts using these updated rules once you've approved them. And then we obviously have graphs. Every AI employee needs some charts so we can visualize these KPIs and watch them improve over time. And so we'll see that hopefully start to go up. If for whatever reason a change to the SOP has led to an immediate score drop, we have systems to automatically roll back to the previous version of the SOP in order to prevent, any catastrophic changes from breaking what's already been working for you. So that's a very important component right here, is to be able to roll that back and then kind of do an analysis. And we actually learn a lot about that, what changes to the process that may seem like they made sense. A human did approve them at one point, actually led to reducing the KPI. And, that often surfaces really interesting conversations, like whether we should not do more, we should never do that again in the future, or maybe we need to adjust the KPIs a little bit because we have like new expectations for the roles. Really good discussions happen when scores drop here. Fortunately, though, we can just roll it back and keep it as it was. Another thing I really want to note that's exciting too, as we're monitoring performance, new models come out and we're able to just switch to the new model very quickly. We can often see immediate little performance jumps across all the AI employees every time new models are coming out. So it's a really exciting update you're getting just by virtue of building AI employees, having AI employees every single time these models improve. So I'm going to show you a real example using a LinkedIn ghostwriter as an AI employee here. So it will write the LinkedIn posts using English rules that you defined. It knows the brand voice and the formatting rules. It has clear goals. In the beginning, for example, you want 80% of the posts to get automatically approved by a human reviewer without any feedback. That's a very common first KPI. And then it will write the posts and it can remember everything it's already written in the past. So it can even look ahead and say, hey, we're making too much of this content type. It's also maybe not really performing as well as these other types. Let's start to, even change the LinkedIn strategy and approach that we're taking here. Very exciting. And so it will reference your SOP. It can reference the current draft. It can reference all the past drafts, the project goals, the KPIs, any background context that's relevant. Then it can actually have the human review each post. They can directly edit the posts themselves. They can provide the feedback through comments. They can approve it. They can reject it. And you're really tracking heavily how many posts get instantly approved with no feedback, because those are very important. And ultimately what we're trying to achieve when we're trying to get humans out of the lower level work that AI employees should be doing. And then all that feedback, of course, is saved to memory, where AI manager will review with it. They will check out all the posts that were written, read all the feedback, see the approval scores, and then check the progress towards this 80% KPI and any other KPIs that are defined. And together they'll propose ideas to improve it. So maybe change the types of hooks that you're using, maybe change the structure you're using, change the CTAs. And this is what I recommend as like a first iteration on the AI employee. But once the human's just approving every single post, then it should start to actually look at how the posts are performing on LinkedIn, and it will care less about the human feedback, and it will care entirely about, engagement, comments, reach, all of these core metrics that are important for the platform. And once the AI manager proposes the changes, then this human content manager can review the recommendations and approve whatever they like, reject whatever they don't want to include in the SOP update. And then the AI employer will start using the new rules. It will track its performance, and hopefully over time, the goal is to see it going up. And just like we shared earlier, if the performance immediately drops after a change, then we can roll it back immediately here. And we can even set up rules where the system automatically rolls it back for us. So AI employees do need a place to work. At DataCoast, we call this a digital HQ. It's one application where they're all doing all their work. And it's also really clean, like data structure for the company too. Humans often do pop in here to give their reviews and their approvals. And so here you can see this example of a little overview for the AI employees. Here's 4 AI employees. You can kind of see what they've done today. You can see that they're active. They're not like broken or offline. And when they ran last, and also, tracking how much time they're saving from their humans. We can approximate that based on how long this takes a human to run at the moment when we first automate it. We can see how much time is saved and then convert that to money, which is really exciting and incredible to see. I love these dashboards. And then when you click on them, see real charts of how they're performing against their KPIs. Now, the big question is which AI employee should be hired first, because there are so many workflows in all of our companies. It can be really hard to know where to start. So I've created a audit here that we'll actually be sharing in the chat in just a moment that you can use. It's a worksheet, and the goal is to find at least 20 hours. But if you do this for your whole company, I'm sure you'll find hundreds and hundreds of hours that AI employees can actually take off of your plate, put back on your calendar. And I actually have an example audit here already completed with Coach Hess. And I'll just run you through the guide that we're going to share here, the audit. So first, this is a whole introduction to how the audit works, how to use it, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and how to score as well. I'll walk you through in just a moment. Now, if you jump into the second tab, you can see it's already been completed. When you open up your template, it will be empty, but you can just write all the workflows you have here, or at least the ones that you already know are taking the most amount of your time. And you can just start filling them in, okay? And you can put who runs it at the moment, whether that's a person or a department. I think it's good to start organizing and kind of grouping them in that way. And then how often do you run it per week? So if you run it once a week, there's obviously a 1 here. If you run it, just like every 4 weeks, I'll just do 0.25. If you do it every 2 weeks, I'll do 0.5. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just, can be napkin math a little bit, what your intuition is here. And then how long does it take you to run it at the moment? Just put in the number of minutes per run. And then together, this will show you how many hours per week you're spending on this activity. And with Coach S, this is for his solo coaching business. So the more team members that you have doing specific workflows and tasks, the larger these amounts are going to sum to, and the higher the ROI is going to be. So I just want to throw it out there. The larger your team, the more ROI here, replacing this level of work. And then what we did is we scored the cost of errors. So if this happens, there's almost no significant cost associated with it going wrong. If this goes wrong here, then there's a high cost associated with it. And on the Start Here page, you can see kind of a breakdown of them, how to score them. And then let's see, going back here, once you filled that in, then you can move into the rules based. So is it something you can write an SOP for, like a step-by-step guide? First do this, then do that, then do that. And very often you can do that. It feels like maybe it's hard or you can't, but many processes you really can write some sort of instructions for. But some things you can't, maybe like handling a live sales call. That's going to be a very hard thing for an agent to handle at the moment. So let's definitely leave that with humans. But here you can see many things are 2.5 or higher, actually, more on the rules-based side. And I think that's typical from what I'm seeing. Once you enter that, you get this priority score automatically calculated. The higher the priority score, the higher you should prioritize it. And so here you see one that is really standing out compared to the others. And once you find that, you can just copy the workflow with the high score over to this page here. and this will give you the first 3 to 5 initiatives you should be focusing on. So you can copy over the workflow, you can copy over the hours per week that's in this column right here. And then you can copy over I guess not copy, you need to put in your loaded hourly costs to do these workflows. So if you want to do it per department, you could put different loaded costs here. And I think that's really helpful to do it kind of per team member or per department here. And then you can estimate a build cost. Typically we're automating these workflows for somewhere between like 5 and 10,000. So I just dropped in some gut feelings from me personally. But again, I'm happy to jump in and take a look at your workflow and give you a better idea of where you may land. And then here you can see the annual labor cost, and then the first year return, and then the payback on that to actually see a financial ROI, let alone if you choose something that your team really hates doing or creates a lot of secondary dysfunction, which a lot of these low-level tasks do, and they can create a lot of chaos if they're not done, but they're also very hard to do reliably because they're not fun to do and they're typically high volume and very repetitive. So this is just a pure financial ROI, but there's typically much more benefit it gives to the company than just pure money. So here you can see payback time in 2 months for the first one, and then the second two both have a payback time of about 5 months. That's like financially breaking even. And again, these are just estimates, but this really helps you see like where your highest potential comes. And especially if you're working with a team, these numbers will look incredibly healthy for you too. So fantastic. There's another example included in the template too. This is based on a 12-person accounting firm. So here's some things they're going through here. You can see different priority scores, and you can see their top 3 initiatives modeled here as well. All right. So we'll drop this in chat for everyone here now. Perfect. Holime's already shared it. Thanks, Holime, for that. Fantastic. All right. Well, we've made it nearly to the end. I just want to offer at the very end here, if you'd love to run this audit on your own business, or if you're a coach and you'd like to run it on one of your clients' businesses, I'm happy to jump in a call with you, and I can run the whole workflow audit myself with you and your client. And you don't have to even figure out how to use the spreadsheet. Just join, answer some questions. It takes only 30 minutes to kind of identify the highest value workflows. And then I'm really good at finding at least 20 hours of waste in operations. And I even have a guarantee that if I don't, I'll pay you $500. There are some basic qualifications that apply. Namely, you have a business with a few people on it. And yeah, happy to always do that if you want some extra support or extra insight or more tailored advice or strategy on your specific workflows and business. All right, so at the end here, you can drop any questions you have in the chat and I'll answer. They can be anything about AI employees or digital HQs or the audit worksheet itself. And I'll give you a few minutes to type out some questions. All right, I'll wait another minute to see if there are any questions in the chat. Oh, great. So first off, I'll answer Coach S's question. And again, thanks, Coach S, for volunteering to run the workflow audit and allowing us to take a peek at it here during the live stream. So is the integration of the sales note taker easy? That's a great question. Now, it is actually quite easy. Especially the hardest part truly of building AI employees and hiring them is writing that SOP in the beginning. So the biggest question I always have first is there already a process you have for making notes inside your CRM? And if you say no, it's not a big deal. It's fine, but that's kind of where you need to begin. So I would recommend you pull up your Claude or Chat, whatever you're using, and use it to help you write a clear process step by step of how you would like notes to be taken in your CRM. Once you have that, that's half of the puzzle immediately solved. And to actually build the AI employee, typically it takes us about 2 weeks to build it and then integrate it into your system. And then also get a baseline, we call it the baseline KPIs of how it's performing. And from there, then we start doing these learning loops, and then we can see over time that it improves towards those KPIs. But for this one, the KPIs aren't that challenging. It's mostly just that it works and it creates notes that you agree are valuable and focused on the right things. And I think AI is really good at those 2 things. So this one's a very fast one. It doesn't take a lot of learning to get up and running. And then Angela, yeah, thanks for asking, is Copilot considered an AI employee? So Copilot is, okay, a couple of things. That's very interesting. So if you're talking about Microsoft's LLM model Copilot, it's actually a LLM model like Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT. However, it's really performing much lower than those 3 others I just mentioned. I'd feel like for whatever reason, they're not fully investing in that program anymore, that service. But I know that a lot of enterprises use it because of its connection to Microsoft. But I'll just share that it's very underwhelming what I've seen come out of it compared to Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini. And then there's also another thing about Copilot. I'm not sure if this is what you mean, but I'll answer because it's very interesting. Copilot is also kind of a design pattern for how to make AI employees or AI assistants where the human does the work on the screen, but they have an AI beside them, kind of guiding them through the steps. And for making a proposal, it may say, okay, great. We have like a client, he wants this proposal. Now we need to make like the first page, and it helps you create the first page. And then it says, all right, now we need to go to the second page, and then we need to do pricing. And it just kind of almost like a wizard of the past, but a little bit more interactive, and you can chat with it. It guides you through the process. So that's also a design pattern, this kind of Copilot approach. And it can work well with AI employees, depending on the case. But typically, the Microsoft LLM Copilot is not an AI employee because out of the box, it doesn't own one workflow. It doesn't have the goals set for it. It doesn't track that it's improving over time towards those goals. Thanks for the great questions. And any other questions before wrapping up? And maybe just to answer a question a little bit more, Coach S, these AIs can work with any CRM that has an open API, which any modern CRM today really does. So it could be, Go High Level or HubSpot or Zoho. Let's see, Insightly, we've also worked with. Almost all of these modern CRMs will be able to integrate with it. Yeah, great. So Gemini is a great one. That's one that's provided by Google. They're always kind of fighting for the top seat. At the moment, I'll just share, Angela, I started with ChatGPT like most people. And then I did move to Gemini and became a very strong Gemini proponent, very happy with it. And then recently, though, I have to admit, Claude has really been impressing me. So I recommend trying out Claude as well. But Gemini is a great model. Chat's also a great model. These guys are definitely on the top. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. As always, you can send me any other questions you have, and I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So if we haven't already connected, please send the connection and I'll accept. And then if you also want help with that workflow audit applied to your business, or if you're a coach to your client's business with you there as well, I'm happy to schedule a time for that. Thanks so much for attending, and have a great rest of the day.